Poker's legendary champions, next-generation stars, and tireless ambassadors of the game, sharing their wisdom and guiding your journey to high achievement on the green felt. This is Tactical Tuesday on Chasing Poker Greatness with your host, Brad Wilson.
Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast. As always, this is your host, the founder of ChasingPokerGreatness.com, Coach Brad Wilson. Today's Tuesday, which means it's a tactical day, and I want to welcome the co-host of Tactical Tuesday, Jon. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. Got one of your concepts today for Tactical Tuesday. See how this one goes.
You know, I think the people loved, your concept of putting me on the spot, and shockingly, they like, any aspect of like gambling or betting. I know that's like shocking to realize, but they do.
So what are we doing today?
Yeah, so today, DGAF played on a live stream. He's a friend of mine, somebody that I've battled against many hours. I've hung out with away from the felt, and just a really cool dude. And so I just wanted to have an episode kind of dedicated to him getting in the live stream streets. I think this is the first time that he's played, and maybe the first time that he's just kind of shown his face and just been comfortable with letting everybody know that that's him, because forever, he was kind of anonymous on his podcast. He didn't really want people to know, I guess, like what he looked like or his name or anything like that. But yeah, he's a great dude, and it's really awesome for me to get a chance to see him battling in action. It takes me back to my time at Commerce playing with him, and so just wanted to dedicate a show to him.
Yeah, I think the fans would also probably really happy that he's finally playing on stream. I think this is his first time on stream, but it's his he's like probably the most probably the commentator who like commentates the most episodes of Hustler Casino Live, and like everyone in the chat and Twitter and stuff seems to love him and seems to think like he's like by far the best commentator on HCL. So I'm sure everyone is happy to see him actually play.
Yeah, he's cool as a cucumber, and he's got the dry, witty sense of humor.
Yeah.
Which I think I'm a big fan of the dry sense of humor, and he's just a good dude. Yeah. And I'm really happy to actually just see his podcast blow up and him back in the high stakes arena, just doing work. That's exciting to me, and so let's
get into
actually.
Hands.
What's up?
You want to get into these hands?
We can get into the hands. I think the hands are not as important as, just kind of talking about DGAF and sharing some stories.
What kind of player is this guy? If you had to just see, I assume he's not tight, or you wouldn't be friends with him.
No, he's not tight. I don't think anybody would describe DGAF as a tight player. I think that, on Philosophical Friday, we've talked a lot about just kind of trusting your intuition, trusting your gut, being confident in decision-making. I think that these are all traits that DGF has in a big way. He trusts himself. He's never afraid to pull the trigger with like running a big bluff or putting chips into the pot. I think in his heart, he's a gambler. Like, he wants to play big pots. He wants to get involved. He wants to VPIP. He just likes being in the mix. So, he's going to play a lot of hands. He's going to be quite aggressive. Sometimes, I think at the beginning of the stream, Tuckman was saying that he had told him beforehand that he's just going to 3-bet in the dark for the first hour or so until he gets stuck 2K or whatever. So there was, an hour in the stream where, a man of his word 3-betting the 9-4 off and just kind of giving the people what they want. So he's definitely a gladiator that just is going to be in there battling.
Yeah, I always wonder about that kind of stuff when I see it on streams, especially like pretty good players like DGAF who, you know, are 3-betting like the 9-4 suited, or I think he had like 6 deuce of hearts like 3-bet in here. I'm like, man, like how much like this is like something that I just wouldn't even be able to think about if I was playing high stakes, where like, you know, doing some form of advertising or some form like extracurricular entertainment. Basically, that's like beyond me thinking my hardest about like how to win each poker hand. I just wouldn't even be able to like have the mental capacity to be like, oh, I should do this because it's good for the fans, or maybe that's what happens when you're playing like, you know, maybe this is like tiny stakes for him and it's easy.
Well, I think for better or worse, his risk tolerance is exceptionally high, much higher than normal human beings, and I think that has both served him well in his career and also been a detriment at various points in his career as well, because lack of risk aversion in poker can be a superpower, but it can also be your downfall. In the case of, you know, many poker players who have been exceptional talents and won tons of money, but for one reason or another just invited way too much risk into their poker career and found themselves broke. But yeah, he's I have so many stories about DGAF. You know, one of them was, I think I've told it on the pod before, but when I was staying at the Crown Plaza at the Commerce, I would typically go to bed at 11 o'clock at night, but they have a convenience store in there, so I would like come down, like take a sleep aid at like 9:30, and then for whatever reason I would want a snack at like 10:30. So like I trek across the Commerce to go to that little store to get myself a snack, and, you know, kind of walk through the high stakes room saying hi to my friends and like just seeing what's going on. And he was playing Garrett heads up one night, and
what year is this? How far back?
This is probably like 2014-ish,
okay,
something like that. Like,
yeah.
So him and Garrett were playing like heads up 2040. And I kind of stopped by the table, said what's up, and Garrett won a massive pot. I don't remember the board. I don't remember the action. I just know that it was a massive pot, and he tabled like king 7 off. And I just remember DGAF kind of looking at his hand and like smirking and being like, yeah, that's a $1,200 hand pre-flop. And yeah, then I left, and I assumed that they just battled heads up until the wee hours of the morning. But
it's like,
yeah,
nice. This guy called a 4-bet with king 7 off. Like,
yeah,
I can't leave this game.
Yeah, I mean, and the truth is, like, both him and Garrett were just insane back then. So like, obviously they're both just putting tons of money in the pot. But like I said, you know, he's, for better or worse, doesn't really have much fear. And, you know, there was like a good 10-20 game running, and he's battling Garrett heads up like on the side at 2040. If that kind of gives you any insight into like, yeah, just how he rolls.
Yeah, I think that's that's all I would need to hear about someone to be able to. Oh yeah, okay, I can kind of tell what type of person you are.
Yeah, that's the type of player he is,
yeah.
And also quite athletic as well. Don't let him fool you. He's not bad basketball player. That's another thing. Like at Commerce,
that hoop in the parking lot.
yeah. We would meet up sometimes, like on a Sunday. I think it was a Sunday, since, you know, poker's kind of dead on Sundays in general, live poker. Just meet up and play like 4-on-4 at that hoop back there. And I'm pretty sure Billy, I don't know if he he says his name publicly, but yeah, he was the stud. He was the MVP.
Scooped a lot of money back there in the parking lot.
We didn't even gamble. Like we didn't even like, no, there was like no gambling component to it. He just like took everybody to the rack, and but yeah, it was a really good time and very fond memories that I have. So very happy to see him, in action, and wishing him, you know, really nothing but the best. So we can dive into a couple of these hands. They're going to be just easy breezy hands. Nothing outrageous that we're going to break down in today's show. So just dive into numero uno.
Let's go.
And there's like a high possibility that I'm going to get an ad here when I start the stream for the YouTube
man.
listener or watcher, the YouTube watcher can see that the action's kind of paused on DGAF's head.
Maybe once Wolves takes off, you can afford YouTube Premium.
I mean, I'm hoping. That's like Q4 2023.
Yeah. Long-term goals. Like All right, so DGAF opens the 9-7 of clubs. I don't know how many people are at this table, but
many.
Yeah, a lot.
Lots. Way too many people are at the table. I think it's 9-handed or so. Yeah, he opens a 120 with 9-7 of clubs in the hijack. Vegas Vin 3-bets him to 300 in the cutoff. And a gentleman by the name of Darren cold calls out of the big blind to 80 with the 8-9 of hearts. And gentleman by the name of Ernie goes ahead and calls 260 with the king 10 of different suits.
And then action gets back to the man. As soon as you can just tell from the way his like body is positioned and like his just the way he's looking at the table, like, oh man, it's coming. Like this guy's not folding right now.
Yeah, and most likely not calling either. Like more chips are about to go in the pot.
I get so deflated when I'm like the Vegas Vin in this spot, and like I'm just like this light 3-bet. It's not gonna go through. This guy's just thinking about what size to 4-bet too.
Yeah, you could just watch Darren and Ernie put the chips in the pot and like they don't really have a hand that wants to put in like lots of money, and this is not good for me. If DGAF's paying attention,
your heart starts sinking as like more and more people flat behind you, and like DGAF starts drooling like more and more.
Oh, there's $1,000.
Oh, now there's 500. Now there's 750.
The price too 4-bet. It's getting better and better. And yeah, so.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah, so he sticks in the 4-bet to 1,500. Vegas Vin is silently cursing Ernie and Darren. And I think it looks like DGAF's about 7,500 deep or so, and Vin has him covered, and the other players have basically already mentally folded, so their stack size isn't super relevant here.
I mean, I think this is like a good lesson, not for DGAF, but honestly for like everyone else, and maybe mostly for Vegas Vin, about like when you 3-bet early position opens. Like I experienced this a lot, like when I, under the gun opens and then I 3-bet like small blind or big blind, and like they kind of can just do like whatever they want to you in that spot. Like they're like, oh yeah, I opened early position, I have like a really, really tight range. If I 4-bet here, like I can just like 4-bet here sort of mercilessly and like just run over you and like everyone else that 3-bets my early position open. So I think like if you are playing against like someone that's like DGAF's level of aggression and like risk tolerance, like I would be like very, very well, I guess like the way I would adjust is just by like calling wider or like 5-betting more or something like that versus DGAF. But yeah, you just kind of have to be ready to do that kind of stuff versus someone who's like capable and willing to 4-bet the 9-7 suited just because they're uncapped from early position.
Right, and I mean, his name is his nickname is DGAF, right? Like it's.
Oh yeah, sorry. Is that a tell? Like.
Yeah, I think that's an indicator, right? And it's just about like reopening the action, right? With a hand like the ace tray of spades, like we reopen the action. 2 people called in between with like 8-9 suited and king 10 off, so like it's not as if you're generating much folds from the players behind, and with the action reopen, it just gives DGAF the opportunity to put in this 4-bet, and you're just kind of very sad about your decision to open the action again.
Yeah, so you just flat the ace 3 suited there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, me too.
I especially want to. My biggest priority there in live poker is table configuration and the frequencies of villains behind me 3-betting. Like if villains are not 3-betting a ton behind me, then yeah, I'm just going to be flatting in that spot quite often. If villains are 3-betting, then I probably just fold the ace tray, honestly. Or
me too.
depending on the type of players that are 3-betting behind and like some post-flop playability questions and depth, maybe we can call with the intention to just call a squeeze if somebody does squeeze behind. I think that's reasonable as well. But you kind of need a plan for somebody squeezing and need to assess the risk and chance that somebody does squeeze behind you.
Yeah, I like everything you said. I think if it was like 4 regs behind me, I would just muck the ace 3 suited. But if it was, if I thought that the players behind me were like very loose and like not great poker players, then I would definitely flat the ace 3 suited and like hope to go multi-way. I think it's like I think those like suited aces, especially if you can like make a straight draw, like suited wheel aces are particularly good hands to take multi-way, just because you make really, really strong hands when you do make hands.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing 9-handed live poker, right?
Yeah.
Like, you get 35 hands an hour. You need to get in there if you're one of the stronger players as much as you can without kind of spewing the chips away.
Yeah.
Because like
You get 35 hands an hour playing live poker? No way.
30, 35, something like that.
That seems high. Maybe I just tank too long in every hand I play.
30 hands an hour. You play 4 tables online, you get 250 an hour. 30 is like, it's like 8 times slower than online.
I thought it was like 20 something. I would have guessed like 20 something for live poker. Maybe that's a lot. 20 something is like 2 minutes a hand. That's kind of long, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty long.
Yeah.
So DGAF's 4-bet does go through. So just
Nice.
a pre-flop hand here in the first one on Tactical Tuesday, and then
I think this hand is very telling about like the type of player. Like you just need to see this and you're like, oh, okay, like it's one of these guys. Like I got.
Yeah, like you basically, the chips are potentially going in the middle whenever, you know. So like, another thing that like you could do against a player like DGAF is like you could flat if you're Ernie or the guy before with the 8-9 of hearts with the action still open. If you think that DGAF's just going to over aggress, you could just flat the 3-bet cold with like aces or kings as a trap. I think that's a pretty cool little play.
Yeah. I mean, if he's going to over aggress, why even wait for aces and kings? Just do it with the king of hearts, 10 of spades.
Sure. That's what Ernie did. But Ernie forgot to put the rest of the money in after he over aggressed. That's the problem.
I'm sure he was thinking about it.
Yeah. So after the break, we'll look at another hand that DGAF played on the Hustler Live stream. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Before I got Nuffle, I had run into a lot of donk bets. And I think once you play a certain amount of hands, there's something wrong with our opponent's strategies, but you don't know how to play to maximize EV against it. And it's very frustrating. I looked at the document and I couldn't believe that I paid money for it. I actually doubted that it could provide value because it was so brief. But since then, it's repaid me just over and over and over again. And it's one of the most consistent moneymakers built into my strategy that sheds light on just how bad your opponents are. And it took me 20 minutes to perfect it. And it's just amazing. Yeah, I'm speechless. It's just that good. The simplicity of it is part of it being a masterpiece.
All right. Welcome back to this special DGAF themed Tactical Tuesday. John, I'm going to hit the play button and you can start breaking down the action on this second hand. For the podcast listener, I'm just going to fill the silent void here.
Looks like 10, 20, 40. Yeah, opens. Ace 9 of clubs, $120. Vegas Vin. Oh man, this guy is just getting in there. 3-betting the 9-5 of diamonds.
Vegas Vin don't give no F.
Yeah, he doesn't care about it. DGAF, this guy 4-bet, like whatever, just gonna keep pounding away.
He's like really DGAF.
Yeah, the real DGAF.
The real DGAF, yeah.
All right. Same story as last time. Vegas Vin 3-bets, DGAF, everybody calls.
Yeah, we get a pot that's...
Oh, why doesn't he do it here? This is like...
I think his hand is too good. He's like, oh, no, this hand dominates the 9-7.
Yeah, like
clubs.
if it was offsuit, I would I don't know. I would take. I think you should just take all the squeeze spots against the guys against like what I've seen. But I guess he doesn't know
what's going
He doesn't
down.
exactly know what Ernie and the other guys are like flatting behind. But he probably
I think
he's got to be a
we
good.
could draw some
Yeah, yeah.
conclusions when they flat and then fold very quickly to like
Right.
4-bet, you know.
No, a little surprised that he didn't 4-bet here.
Yeah, he's mixing it up, like I said. Yeah, I think 4-betting is probably superior, but he decides to flat with the ace nine of clubs. There's 1,600 in the pot, and it looks like DGAF has like 5,300 behind. Everybody else has him covered. We're 4 ways. Ernie's got the jack 10 off. DGAF has the ace nine of clubs. Vegas Vin has the 9-5 of diamonds, and Ted's got the 6-7 with a heart and the club. And so we take a flop 4 ways. The flop is 6-8 jack, which kind of gives everybody except for DGAF something. I mean, I guess
he's got some.
the back door.
Yeah.
He's got
Got some
the
hope.
backdoor nut flush draw rolling. Vegas Vin's got a gutter. He was a pre-flop 3-better. Ted's got bottom pair, and Ernie's got top pair. And the flop, DGAF checks. Ernie checks his jack. Ernie checks his jack 10. DGAF checks. Vegas Vin checks, and Ted checks behind. And the turn pairs the 8. And Ernie grabs some chips. And how much does he bet? 300 into 1,600. So about a 5th pot size bet here from Ernie. Any thoughts, Sean?
This is just way too thin to be betting 4 ways, even though I mean, I think this is a hand that like live players just bet all day in this spot. It's like, oh, turn, flop checked around. I got top pair. I just got to bet it on the turn. But this is just, this is just way too thin.
And the reason it's too thin is like, well, you're about to see kind of what happens here. And I don't know exactly why DGAF decides to just go ahead and raise. But my assumption is that due to Ernie's sizing here, betting 20%, that he just recognized unlikely to have an 8. And it's unlikely that Ernie can continue to multiple streets of aggression without an 8. So just went ahead and raised here on the turn. And he actually raises kind of small too, which is, that part of it's a little bit surprising here, only going to 800. But maybe it's also has a lot of utility in that it's minimizing risk while the other opponents could have an 8 themselves,
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I think like that would be my biggest fear in putting this raise in. I just think like Vegas Vin and Ted could easily have 8x in their range. I mean, we see Ted checking back 6x on the flop. I think he would probably just do the same with 8x.
Yeah.
When you go 4 ways, obviously there's nothing stopping Vegas Vin from having an 8 either. So that would be the only thing that I'm worried about. But I do think this size, it sort of protects you from like losing too much when one of the guys behind you does have an 8.
Yeah. So, I think the size here is quite clever. I probably, if I did raise, probably would have gone bigger in real time, but I think that's likely a mistake.
Yeah, I would have
really
gone bigger too. But yeah, after seeing the size, I'm like, oh yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. It
Yeah.
serves a lot of different purposes. He raises to 800, and Ernie has 500 to call, and Ernie kind of goes in the tank and just kind of folds. So actually, just the small raise on the turn goes through, which again, like when we're talking about like efficiency in bluffing and raising and sizes, where you use the kind of the smallest size that generates max fold equity.
Yeah.
I think the sizing is pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's especially. I don't know how to think about like how does the size. What do you think about the size when Ernie can just have like infinite draws? That
I don't think Ernie's folding a draw to any
so
size.
regardless of price, so like you're just trying to get to the river with like a perceived strong range, hope the river breaks out, and like
I mean, you're probably just betting. I think also like that small raise keeps Ernie's range somewhat wide, so he can call the turn with like a jack
And
as
fold
well,
over. Yeah.
and then fold the river to like a bomb. And my assumption is, if Ernie would have called the turn, that DGAF is likely just jamming the river.
Yeah.
Because there would have been like 3,200 in the pot, and he would have had 5K or so. And then you just max pressure on Jack X, knowing that like Ernie's probably capped, probably doesn't have an 8 if for a variety of reasons. Number one, the sizing that he chose to use. And then number two, I think that Ernie will bet 3-bet 8X on the turn at some frequency. So by virtue of just calling, we can kind of eliminate some 8X from Ernie's range there as well.
Yeah. I just want to talk about the spot just like in general, like in a vacuum, like this multi-way situation. So I've been doing something kind of wacky in these spots these last few days, or this like last week or so. So like, let's say, single raise pot, under the gun opens, button flats, small blind flats, I'm in the big blind. I complete. Flop checks through. When the small blind leads the turn, I just auto raise the turn from the big blind.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, you kind of like see it here, like where like the two guys behind DGAF, like unless they have an 8, they're just like always folding. And if the small blind doesn't have an 8, like it just puts them, like this guy's just folding like Jack 10 on the turn to like, getting like 5-1 because it just looks so strong when you raise the spot. So yeah,
well,
just like what do you think about that? Just like,
it works
crazy
well.
Yeah.
It works well when the small blind bets inappropriately on the turn.
Yes.
That's where it really is going to shine. And I think that most poker players in general will inappropriately bet when out of position with top pair hands, exactly like this one, just again and again and again and again. And so like it's likely going to work quite well. And I think if we really just think about kind of the flow of the action, that like the players behind likely don't have an 8. I mean, it's hard to make trips in poker. It just doesn't happen super frequently. And once the flop checks through, like the perception from the small blind is like, oh, so the pre-flop 3-better and the guy that flatted the 3-bet are likely capped. So now really all I have to worry about is the big blind. And they can just kind of bet indiscriminately into four players, even though, you need to generate a lot of fold equity. I think that the players on the flop, both, they also take too many aggressive actions somewhat inappropriately, and they don't check back enough strong hands on the flop, which is like just kind of like a green light for the small blind to just kind of stab. It's something that like I think about when I think of bomb pots that are like 9-way action, that like most players' actions are fairly truthful and straightforward in bomb pots. So like when they check, they're just likely going to be check folding. And so, you can have nothing in a bomb pot and the first 7 people check to you. Well, you can probably just bet. And like, even though it seems ridiculous, like you only have to worry about that one player behind you, right? Really. So yeah, I think that the strategy works very well given the tendencies of poker players at large in multi-way pots. I think that multi-way pots are sort of the one of the final frontiers.
Wild West.
Right, of poker theory, right? Like there's not a lot of information on how to play multi-way pots. It's really difficult. There's no multi-way solvers, I don't think, or at least not like a 4 or 5-way solver. So like getting information on multi-way pots is quite difficult. And I just think that like humans tend to take too many aggressive actions with inappropriate hands, not realizing that like, we're trying to push an equity advantage against like 4 players here. And that's difficult. And you actually need like quite a strong hand to do that.
Yeah. The one thing that I'll add to like this multi-way pot discussion is that I think even if the pre-flop raisers are not taking inappropriate aggressive actions, I think you can put them in this like horrendous spots where like this idea came to me because like I check back aces like on Jack 8-6. Let's say like on this exact board, I check back aces on Jack 8-6 as a pre-flop raiser, you know, against 4 players, and then the small blind leads and the big blind raises, And I'm like, wow, I just went from like being so confident that I have the best hand and I'm kind of just pot controlling to like hating everything about this spot. And yeah, so I was just like, oh, I should just raise like a lot. And,
hey, if I feel this terrible with this hand,
yeah,
everybody's gonna feel terrible with every hand.
Right. It's so hard to like what do I do? Do I just flat the raise with aces and like do I like put in another raise? Like what?
Yeah. It's tough. Like I mean, multi-way pots are very, very, very difficult. And I think that's a pretty clever way to apply lots of pressure against the field, who's generally betting. I mean, even aces is like a strong hand, right? Like, to be able to like have some defends, you need like a full house here.
Yeah, you gotta like check back some like two pairs, like.
Right. It's tough. Yeah. So, well, I think that's gonna do it for this DGAF themed Tactical Tuesday. Going to spend some time in the sun throughout the rest of this week, and we'll be back at it in the near future. So y'all have a good week.
See you next week.
And see you next week as well. Peace out, guys.
Thanks for listening to Chasing Poker Greatness. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com to get the newsletter. Join the Greatness Village community, book a coaching session, or dive into the latest data-driven poker courses. Follow the show on Twitter @CPG Podcast.